Okay, welcome to our painting class today. Thank you so much for supporting our girls and boys who are traveling overseas to Italy and Greece. They very much appreciate your support. By taking this class, you are helping them pay for their trip. We are going to be painting a waterfall landscape with emphasis on the waterfall. You will have little containers of paint in your kit that you purchased, and you will have specific brushes. I have not picked them out yet, so if your brushes don't look exactly like ours, I apologize, but you should have a flat brush and a round brush for sure in your kit, and if I can, I will try and get multiple sizes. But things that you will want to provide will probably be something to mix your paint with. So a disposable knife works really well for that. Paper plates or styrofoam plates work great for palettes. Some kind of paper towel for cleaning up and for wiping your brush in between colors. You'll notice I have some cheapy dollar store tablecloth on, covering my table, so it's protecting my table from any spills or when I'm painting the edges going over. And I would recommend a disposable cup for your water as well, but you can use one of those ceramic mugs that you guys have in the cabinet as well. Those work just fine. Just make sure you rinse it out thoroughly when you're done. I will also have a mixing sheet in your packet so you have an idea of which colors will make certain colors when you combine them. So we will be starting out with our primary colors, black and white. Those colors will help us mix any color in the rainbow that you can think of. All right, that being said, I'm going to start by mixing my blue. Now, I don't really want it to be a solid blue. This is a very dark blue, if you can tell. And I'm going to aim to lighten it and add just a little bit of yellow to make it more of a blue-green. And I need enough to paint my whole canvas, so I'm going to take quite a bit. And by the way, if you're wondering why are we painting on a smaller canvas, mostly that's because whenever you go bigger than this, which is I think 9 by 11 or 9 by 12. Whenever you go bigger than this, you really want to stand your picture up with an easel. And being that we're doing this virtually, we couldn't verify that everybody had an easel at home. In fact, most people don't. So to make that easier, we went smaller in size just for your convenience. And we hope that you enjoy doing that. All right, I'm going to clean my brush or my palette knife off and mix up a little bit of yellow, white, and then I'll add my yellow last. I want to get the correct value first. We don't want to go that way. There we go. It's always best to take and put it over to the side and pull in a little bit at a time. That way, if you like where you're at, you can stop. But if you add too much too fast, it can sometimes be a bad thing, because then you have to keep mixing more and more to get the color fixed in. You will run out of paint very quickly. Okay, I like that. That's a lot better. Okay, to make it a blue-green color, I'm going to take my yellow, because whenever you mix blue and yellow together, it makes green. But if I want to keep it looking blue, I don't need a lot of yellow. So again, I'm going to take and mix my color over to the side. And we'll just start a little bit at a time and see how that looks. Sorry, you're getting a little shade over there from my light. That is actually pretty good right off the back. It really only took a little tiny bit to make that color. And if yours does not look exactly like mine, that is okay. And I'll go ahead and pull in the rest of that white, just so I have that all together. Okay, what we're going to do is cover our entire painting with our blue mixture. And if you've never done this before, a little bit of water on your brush before you start will help make it spread smoother. We want to make sure that we are covering the entire canvas, including the sides on each part. This is because when you're finished with this, this is mountable on the wall just as it is. And so you always want to make sure you carry your painting over into the sides. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Enjoy the music while I fast forward, and you guys can do this at home and pause the video when you are ready.
Until you came, I was breathless when we first met. Couldn't keep my hands away. I was speechless when we first met. Yeah, you took the pain away. Didn't mind my scars, mend my broken heart. Life was dull until you came. Now I see in color again. It could rain, I don't mind if it pours, 'cause I'm right next to you, to you. Come rain or come shine, I don't mind, 'cause I'm right next to you. It's you, right next to you, to you, next to you, next to you. Next to you, right next to you, to you, next to you, next to you, next to you. Never thought I'd feel this high. The sky has never felt this low.
Okay, as you finish covering your canvas with your base color, Things to note. You want to make sure that you don't have any gobs of glue, you want to make sure there's no gobs of paint built up anywhere, so make sure it's all smooth. If you need to, you can lift it and look to the side. Also, try and make sure you've covered 100% of the canvas so that there's no little white spots peeking through. This is going to be our base color. We are going to let this dry, and once it's dry, I will show you how to add on to the next step. This should only take a few minutes to dry, but you'll notice when it's dry, it will not look so shiny in the light. So take a minute to finish your backgrounds and then let them dry, and you can watch the next step while it's drying. Okay, so mine isn't completely dry, but we're going to move on anyways. It is still a little shiny in a few areas, and that's okay. I am going to take some white and I'm going to add it to the pre-existing color I already had. If you don't have enough of this left, then you can remix this or start again. But I'm going to use what I already had, and I'm going to add white to it. And what we're going to do is establish where our skyline is. And we may just keep adding to this color, or we might have to remix it several times. So just be prepared to keep in mind the blue with a little bit of white and a little bit of yellow gave us that initial color. And you can always go back to that as you need to. I am going to take my flat brush and paint almost a V shape right up at the top, and it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, but we are going to lighten this entire area up here because this is going to be the sky. And remember, we want to pick this up and paint this part to be the same color as the section that you are painting. So if you are painting on a slightly wet canvas, this slightly wet background, that is okay. You actually might find that you have a really fun mix between the background and your sky that you're adding in. And that is not bad. You can kind of get some cool effects that way sometimes. So depends on what you like to see in your painting. All right, so once I have that in there, to make this look a little bit more like a sky, I am going to come in with straight white. So I want to scoop a little bit of white onto my paper. And I'm going to put it over in this corner so I can pull straight from that. Clean your brush off, because if it is still has the blue in it, then you're going to end up getting a lighter blue instead of white. And what we're going to do is create a few clouds right up in the background so that you definitely know this is the sky. Okay, so I'm going to pick up my white and just create a little tapping. And I'm doing this right over top of the the wet paint on purpose, because I want it to pick up just a little bit of the blue from behind. You don't want your clouds to be solid white because then they look like they are fake clouds. And go ahead and tuck that right into that V. We will paint over that extra in a minute, but it helps you have a realistic ending. You don't want it to be super hard. So simple little taps with your brush. Don't overdo it. Don't fill the entire sky with white cloud. Just find a few little spots that you are happy with and tap in that white to create your cloud. If you want to make it more fluffy, you can kind of pull your cloud a little bit. Instead of tapping, you can do a little bit more of a pull down. But either way, you can play with it a little bit. If you are not liking the way it looks and you feel like you don't like your cloud, never fear. You can go back through, pick up your lighter paint, and just color back over your sky. So I would like you to at least try to get some cute little clouds in there. But if you're not liking what you see, then blend it into the background and make your sky a little bit lighter, and it should work. The next thing we're going to do is create our mountain range and where it's going to stop at the base with the water. We are going to make this a lot darker. So, uh-oh, good, I didn't mess anything up. So I'm going to be using my black, but I don't want it to be solid black. Always make sure, by the way, that you clean off your palette knife before doing this, because otherwise you get mixed colors inside your paint, and that is never good. So I'm going to pull, and this is going to be a bit of black because of the size of the mountain. So we want to make sure we have a good selection there. I'm going to pull some of my white from over here that I had. If you don't have any more, pick some up. And then I'm going to mix it until I get a nice gray. And you can almost create two separate versions of gray, one lighter, one darker, so that we have something to go back through with later to create our rocks. So let me do that in the light so you can see the colors a little better. So create a gray. I wasn't worried about how light or dark I went yet. And then a lighter gray for your highlights on your rocks. We're going to pick up our gray, and I am going to go right over top of this. See what I mean? You don't even have to worry about that because it is going to get covered up. And again, when you do this, you will want to paint right over that edge. You might be wondering, why in the world would she have me paint the whole canvas blue only to cover up sections? Well, we are actually going to start heavy up here, and I want you to pull this down over your canvas so that toward the bottom you start to see some of your canvas through your paint. And that is why we did what we did. So go through and pull it so that it gets lighter right at the bottom. And you can leave a few streaks where you actually see your paint right through it. Don't forget to paint your side. And that one I'm not so worried about, so I'm going to go ahead and color that right solid. And then again on this side, same thing. Layered it thicker and heavier up toward the top. I'm going to come right up to where this waterfall is going to be, and I'm going to paint it down here. If you're struggling with getting those lines where you want them, feel free, since this is dry now, feel free to take a pencil and just kind of lightly sketch in where you want that to stop. There's no right or wrong rule here. So if that helps you with knowing where you should be, then go ahead and do that. I have to tell you, getting into these fun paintings like this is making me miss my older high school kids so much, because this was the stuff that we loved to do, as painting with acrylic. It was always fun once we got into a painting unit, regardless of what group it was, honors art or art one. It was really fun to do. So let's see. Hopefully I have some old art students out there taking this class that would make me super happy. Okay, and I am leaving some blue streaks in there just to give us that coloring that we want. And if you notice, it doesn't all stop in one straight line. I'm going to hold that so you can see it, but feel free to taper it or create a slope, however you want to do it. We're going to be going back in here and doing a splash later anyway, so it is okay however you want to do it. So I'm going to take my lighter gray. I didn't even clean my brush. I just went straight from the dark to pick up my light. And I want to pick it up, but then dry my brush a little bit so it's not super heavy on my brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back in and just give some of my rocks and side of my mountain a little more detail, especially up toward the top. Oops. And if you forget to dry brush like I just did, pick up some black, or sorry, some of your gray and go back over top of it and it will smear back out just fine. You want to keep your flat brush horizontal to get kind of that, and then you can also turn it vertical a couple times if you want, but you want to create almost the feel that some of these are rocks on here. And what I want to do on the, if you've ever seen a sheer cliff drop, you have your top side of the mountain, which kind of is somewhat steep, but you are seeing the light from the sun catch on top of here, because this is almost where you would be able to walk at the top of the mountain. And then you have your sheer cliff drop. So what we're going to do down here is take and stand our brush up on end so that we're painting more with just the tip. So we're not laying it down like a square. We want to do it almost like a tip. And we are going to go in, let me dry brush that a little bit, and just create a few vertical rocks in here. So I'm going to do that for both sides. A little bit too thick for me. Okay. All right. All right, so once I have the basis of my mountain done, I am going to rinse this brush and let this dry. I want to take a look at making sure that at least right along the edge of where my waterfall is going to be is fairly dry. I'm going to first come down here and add a few details, and then we're going to put our waterfall in next. So when we are going close to those areas, we want to make sure that those areas are fairly dry. And this down here should be pretty dry because we were dry brushing, hopefully. Okay, so I've cleaned my brush and I have picked up a new palette because mine is getting fairly full. At least I don't want the color I'm about to make to mix with any of these. So I'm going to get a new palette. I'm going to steal just a little bit of this lighter blue because I don't need a lot. It's not going to take a lot to do what I'm going to create down here. And what we're going to do is make the water down here appear a little more green, because at the bottom of the waterfall, your water color changes since the light hitting it is changing. It's not as bright as it would be at the top of the mountain. So we're going to add just a little bit of yellow. And again, I always start to the side first and just take a little bit at a time. Until I can see a change. I'm gonna go a little bit more. There we go. So I want it to look a little more blue-green than what I had previously. And what I might want to do as well is get my white ready to go. I don't need a ton of it. So I am going to take my big flat brush again, and I'm going to paint sideways because you want the water to look like it's now flat. Vertical strokes will help with the waterfall as it's falling, but we want the water down here to look fairly flat. So I'm going to come in with my green, blue-green I mean, and the edges as well. And if possible, try and get those sideways ones to match up with the ones that you have on your paper. See? Okay, so I didn't cover my entire area, but I got a fair amount of green in there. I can go through with my white, picking up some of that color and just mixing it a little bit with that white so it's not solid white. I'm going to go through and create just the base of where my water is hitting so that it looks like the splatter and the waves that would be created off of your waterfall. And so what I want to do, you know how water gets a little ripple effect? I want to kind of slowly bring those ripples out just a little bit as we go. So there we go. And using that lighter color and white, we are going to do our actual waterfall. I'm going to aim for white first. I might clean my brush just so I don't have too much darkness in there. Okay, so I'm going to start up here and allow some of the blue to shine through. We don't want to cover it all up. I'm going to carry that down all the way to here. And then what I want to do while this is still wet, I'm going to clean my brush, dry it off really good, and I'm going to come back up to the top and I'm just going to slowly rake over top of my waterfall. I'm going to clean off my brush again and do that more than once. And if you feel like you need to come back over here and add a little bit more, it is your waterfall. You can do what you want with it. I'm going to add a few splashes of white right over top of where this was. And actually, if you take your tip, very, very tip of it, and just kind of give it a little squish at the end, you can actually create a little bit of a water effect right here. Okay, and I'm going to come up to the very tip And if you feel more comfortable, by the way, using your smaller brush, this is the perfect time for using a small brush if you need to. I'm going to come up to the very top, and some of you figure that out as you go, like there's no way I'm doing that with the big brush, and that's okay. I'm going to fill in just a little bit more so that looks like it's actually all one piece. Okay, so I want to just slowly fade out some of my water so that it looks like it is all part of it. So if you've ever looked at a waterfall, it has just a few bits of water kind of coming off to either side. And our waterfall is just about done. If you want to go back in, you don't have to do this. If you want to take that lighter color of blue-green that we created, you can pick up just a little bit of that and kind of come in and paint a few shadows in your waterfall. That would work too. So, but again, just go light on it so that you're not overpowering. And you might want to rinse and dry your brush and go over that as well. By the way, if you use the small brush to do your waterfall, you might consider still using this brush to do the dry brush effect. So. Okay, I'm not going to play with that too much more because I think I like the way it looks, the way it is. Okay, last but not least, I'm kind of feeling a Bob Ross moment coming on where I just feel like that ridge of the mountain is just kind of lonely. So I feel like we need to add a few trees up there. So if you are wanting to add trees, I'm going to be using my gray, a lot of my gray. I'm also going to mix up a little bit of green to go with it. So let me get that green mixed up first. So blue and yellow together, making that green. I'm going to pick up just a bit of gray to put in that, and it will do two things. It's going to dull my color a little bit, and it's also going to darken it. And I don't want to mix the whole thing in. I want some that's light and some that's dark. So I'm going to go to the very, very top, and I'm going to add a little tiny, oh, that might be a little bit too dark gray, huh? Never fear, mix up a little more blue and yellow, and you got your green again. There we go. Alright, so anytime you feel like something is a little too dark, you can always change the color, come back in, and go back over top of it. Okay, so I actually kind of like that darker because it makes it look like there's some shadow in the tree. So I am not doing super heavy detail. I am literally just tapping in little tiny dots. And I kind of like that darker stuff in between because that definitely makes it look like a nice shadow in there. I'm going to go back in and add a little bit more of that. And then let it be. So just tap in a little bit of color at the top. You'll get your trees. You can do one out by itself if you want. And there's no right or wrong answers to where you choose to put your trees or how you want to make them look. I would keep them small because the scale of your trees is going to tell your viewer how tall this waterfall is, and we want it to look like it's a nice, tall, graceful waterfall. So I very much apologize for my scratchy voice today. For some reason my throat's a little sore. So here we go. Get some on these on this side. And don't leave them hanging out there where they're not touching. You can actually pull this right over top of the edge of your thing. And you can even put a few of them over here too, so it doesn't look like they're just right on the end. You can actually overlap some of your rocks with this. Okay. All right, and then of course, as always, the very last thing you want to do is sign your name. So you can wait till this dries and use a Sharpie, or you can use your black paint to sign your name. I'm going to pull some of my gray and just make it darker blue to sign my name. But I hope you guys had fun painting with me. Thank you so much again for your support of our students going overseas. This is going to be a very fun and educational trip. So I am thrilled to see you guys supporting the kids. But hopefully you guys had fun. I'm gonna put my initials on this. There we go. And I will hopefully see you next time for another painting adventure. Bye guys.